Welcome, everybody, to the 12th episode of Sports Cards Live. What a great ride it's been so far. Had a great show just on Saturday with Tim Getch from ComC. We had a ton of great interaction with all the viewers, lots of questions, lots of tough questions. Tim really addressed a lot of the tough questions that people wanted to ask, and I think he did a fine job at that. He was an awesome guest, so thanks again to Tim, and look forward to having him back again in the future. Had great shows last week with Barry Grice and Brian Gray as well, so all those episodes are up on the YouTube channel, everybody. Please go check those out, subscribe to the channel, and watch those videos in parts or in whole. They're long, so you can watch them in parts, and YouTube will remember where you left off. Before we bring out tonight's guest, Stefan Perot, just going to remind you this Saturday is Dr. Brian Price from In the Game. And also keep in mind, guys, we are starting an hour earlier on Saturday. Dr. Price is on the East Coast in Florida, so pretty late out there to start at 10 o'clock Eastern. So we're going to start at 9 o'clock Eastern on Saturday instead. Before we bring out Stefan, I also want to we have Hobby Insider, the message boards that I run. One of the members there, Greg G-Force, he was giving away 2 Gordie Howe autographs. And so we're going to do that draw right now. I'm going to share the screen, and we're going to bring on the list of the entrants to the draw. Basically, everyone who donated some money to support the site got an entry into the draw. So here we go. Everyone is on this list. There's 88, I believe, entries here, and they're in a random order that I did earlier. So I'm going to bring up the random.org, and we will do this. So there's 1 to 88 there. I'm going to do this 3 times today. Whoever's name is on top after 3 randoms will get the card, the choice of card 1. Greg is actually giving away 2 cards. So the person in second place will win the second card. And then you guys will reach out to Greg and figure that all out. So I'm going to do this 3 times, and we will see who wins the card. There's number 1, 26. Number 2 is the 7th spot, and the winner is in spot number 81. Let's see who that is. Spot number 81, the lucky winner, Hoju71. Hoju71, you win the first one. Actually, that's not going to work. We're going to do it again. Hoju71 wins the first one, and now we're going to do the random again 3 times for the second spot. So let's do that. This is for the second spot. There's the first one. It's for number 1, number 65, and the winner is going to be the spot number 22. The person in spot number 22 is DLC. It almost was Hoju71 again. So Hoju71 for the first card and DLC for the second card. Thank you to Greg for the support, and on with the show. All right, guys. So we got Stefan Perot. Stefan, I wanted to have him on the show because he's one of these younger guys who's really making a dent in the hobby. He's run the lead admin I've seen at card shows for says something. Let's bring him up, see what he has to say. Stefan, let's go to this view. Oh.
You're a little bit frozen on my end. I'm sure it was a great intro, though.
There we go. Stefan, welcome. Going to keep on talking. All right, little technical difficulty. Let's go. Stefan, great to have you on the show. Thank you for being here. How are you doing today, my man?
Perfect. I can see you now. All right. We're all good now. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Okay, man. Great to have you. I know there was a lot of commotion on Facebook and that in anticipation of having you here. So hoping that all those people are here watching and are going to throw some good, tough questions your way when we get into the discussion happening shortly. But listen, kick us off right away, Stefan. I mean, I like to start by talking about how people got into the hobby. You're a younger guy, so it's not that long ago for you, but kick us right off, man. What kind of kicked off the addiction for you and with hockey cards and sports cards in general?
Yeah, so it was pretty random, actually. I was at a hockey camp in summer in Colorado Springs, and I was staying at my best buddy's house. Colorado Springs, about an hour from where I lived. And his dad was a big collector, and I always collected as a kid, but I didn't really know what values were. I just saw a picture, it was base cards, and I saw a picture of Wayne Gretzky. I'm like, oh my God, that's cool. So I was always that kind of collector as a kid. And then when I went to my buddy's house, his dad was showing me all his cards, and he handed me a stack of cards. I don't know what they were now. I don't really remember. But he handed me the stack of cards. It was probably about 10 cards. And he said, how does that look? And I go, oh, these are really cool. And he goes, yeah, well, you're holding about 20K right now in cards. And I was like, oh, 20 hockey cards are worth something? I'm like, there's some money in this game. And I was 14 at the time. That was the summer of when I was just turned 14. And or actually I was 13 at that time anyway. It doesn't matter. So yeah, that's kind of what sparked my interest. And I was lucky. As soon as I got home from that hockey camp, I Googled, hockey card shops near me, thinking that they would be specified to hockey. I didn't know card shops as a whole. And I was lucky enough to have Mike's Stadium Sports Cards about 10 minutes from my house. And Mike Fruitman, he's a, huge guy in the hobby. He's had his sports card shop for, I think, 25 years. Yeah, he's that old. And I just started going in there every chance I got, bought boxes, and I was just a young kid. And that pretty much all I did for the first year was just buy boxes. And that's how I got into the hobby. And that's kind of what started my addiction.
Okay, right on. Hey, just before you go on, and I want to kind of push that a bit more to anyone who's making comments in Facebook specifically. You need to go to StreamYard.com. It's on the ticker right now /Facebook, and click the big blue button. I'm happy to bring all comments and questions and poking fun at Stephon if you want. We're happy to bring it on the show, but we need to see who you are. So to do that, go to StreamYard.com /Facebook, click the big blue button to allow StreamYard to recognize your name, and then we will get you involved. If not, then we're just going to kind of bypass your comments. I apologize for that, just kind of how we run this show. So, okay, Stephon, thanks everybody for that. Stephon, so you got into the hobby like 7 years ago, as you were saying. You met your buddy's dad, put $20,000 worth of cards in your hands, and you're like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. Yeah. What was the one thing that really made you, though, what helped vault you into the hobby to help get you to the level you're at today?
Yeah, so this is a kind of crazy story. And so that whole fall, I moved away to Canada my first year when I was 14 to play prep school hockey there. And my parents were never big supporters in the hobby. They never really understood, hockey cards. They always thought, I like to always say the joke, they're just pictures of men. That's the running joke I have going on. So They never really, gave me anything for the hobby. They didn't really understand it, which is completely fine. But I asked for a box of the cup, 11-12 the cup for Christmas. And that was the only present my mom and dad gave me, because it was pretty expensive. They were, I think, probably $400 at the time, whatever they run. And that was the one present I got for Christmas. And I'll tell the after story later, but I ended up pulling a limited logos of Wayne Gretzky from that box. And the box ended up being bought off of eBay from a seller who had like 100 feedback. So it was a one-off, probably a 1 in a million chance that I pulled that card. And
what was it numbered to? What was that Gretzky limited logos numbered to that year?
Numbered to 10, and it was the Edmonton patch. Yep, Edmonton patch. And then I ended up selling that card for $1,800 USD when I was 14 years old. And that's kind of the thing that kickstarted my whole collection, that paid for my first trip to the expo. It paid to start my Gordie Howe collection. As a lot of people know, I collect Gordie Howe. That's kind of just like the one big thing that spiraled into whatever I'm doing today.
Okay, awesome. So that card paid for your way to Toronto to the expo, which is, kind of hockey centric, but there is basketball, baseball, football there. It's mostly hockey for everybody watching, and it's an awesome show. So you're at this show, you've got all this money in your pocket, and you're 14, 15 years old?
Yeah, 14 at the time. Yeah.
So what did you do at the show? Like, how did you find it? So first of all, it's your first time at a huge card show.
Yep.
You're 14 years old and you've got a wad of dough in your pocket. How was that experience, and what cards did you buy?
It was an amazing experience. I'm sure everybody remembers their first expo and how overwhelming in a good way it is. You just, I found the expo by YouTube videos. I think I was just watching box breaks at the time, and then I ran into a video of, a redemption program at the expo, and then I YouTube, what is the expo? And then I saw a huge card show, and I'm like, holy crap, those things exist. Like, that's awesome. I want to go there. So yeah, the Gretzky card paid for my plane ticket over spring break to go to the Toronto Expo. And I don't really remember what I think I just bought anything that I thought was cool at that time. I didn't really have a PC. The one card I do remember buying is I still have it in my collection today. It was my first Gordie Howe auto, which was the 11-12 Parker's Champions Renditions auto of Gordie. And yeah, that was the first card in my collection, or of my Gordie PC, and it's spiraled on from there, obviously. But yeah, it was so much fun. I spent all 3 days just walking around trying to wheel and deal. And yeah, it was the best time in the world for sure.
And I mean, and you're a 14-year-old, and forgive me for using the word kid. I mean no disrespect, but you're a 14-year-old kid walking around, and I remember meeting you, probably maybe not that show, although I probably saw you there, but I remember meeting you, I don't know, 5-6 years ago now, thinking you were older, first of all, and I thought you really carried yourself well. You really impressed me with just the way you handled yourself and how professional you were for such a young guy. I've seen you at nationals as well. I think you've been to about 6 in a row. Is that right?
Yeah, 6 in a row. I've been to every one since 2015.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of nationals for a young guy. And I mean, I even remember this last one in Chicago in August, seeing you there, and I was at your booth, and I'm looking in your showcases, and I'm thinking, wow, there's some nice stuff there. There's some cards I'd like to acquire. I don't think we did any. I don't remember if I bought anything from you. I might have picked up one card. I'd have to really go back.
Picked up a Chicago card, if I remember right, a Taves.
Oh, a Taves card. That's right. I picked up a nice Taves card from you. That's right. Yeah. But one of the things that impressed when I see a young guy in the hobby, and I think it's cool to have you on because it's evidence that there are younger people in the hobby. I mean, you're 21 now, so you're not a teenager anymore, but you were a few years ago a teenager. And a lot of people are always saying there's no kids in the hobby. The hobby's not for kids anymore. Again, not to call you a kid because you're super mature for your age, but there are more youngsters in the hobby than I think a lot of people expect. And to top it off, I mean, I almost wonder, how do you hold your own when you're at a card show, especially set up as a vendor at 21 years old, amongst all the real veteran pro sharks out there that are walking around trying to, find deals and maybe put one over you if they can? How do you kind of defend against that and carry yourself amongst all those other, call them pros or really experienced collectors and vendors?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it really just comes down to knowing what you have and being knowledgeable. I always tell people that are new in the hobby, know what you have, research as much as you can, over research. So when you go to these shows, you know exactly what you have, what's hot in the hobby, what's, not hot in the hobby, when hockey cards are, hot and when they're cold. And I kind of went through the obsessive stage of learning about this hobby. So by the time I did start setting up at shows, I considered myself a veteran, at least in knowledge of the current hobby. And that's just kind of how I carried myself. And I think a lot of it goes to, your reputation. Like, the hobby world is small. It really is. Like, a lot of people think it's big, but it is small, especially hockey. A lot of people that know each other in this hobby, especially now with the power through Facebook groups and forums. So when people,
Instagram is
now Instagram, Instagram's grown immensely for the hobby. And when you carry yourself in a professional manner and you build a good reputation, then guys aren't gonna come to you and try to pull a fast one. They're going to treat you with respect and treat you like how you should be. And that's just always how I tried to carry myself and still try to carry myself today.
Right on. Okay. So listen, we have a bunch of questions and comments, mostly comments coming through. So I'm going to just throw a few of them up there. I think an anonymous user said, well, as soon as I brought you out, said, well, this show just went downhill.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I'm like, you have Gary or Brian Gray from Leaf, you got Steve Menzie from the Expo, Chris Carlin, and then you have Stefan Perot. And
yeah,
Go.
This guy. Well, you know what? Listen, I mean, my show is kind of it's. I like to have a mix. I like to cover all angles. You know, Saturdays we do industry insiders. Wednesdays we do what I call collectors' perspectives. Getting a collector on, and we've had a bunch, so they've been really great episodes. I'm always really pleased with how they've gone. I also want to point out, guys, I started a Twitter account right there, Twitter account for Sports Cards Live. If you want to follow, if you're someone who uses Twitter, go ahead and follow. I'll follow you back. Notice that the last letter is not the E, it's the 1. Someone else had Sports Cards Live itself, so they gave me Sports Cards LIV1. Thanks to anyone who does go ahead and do that. Will, I'm not wearing an Avalanche shirt. This is just a logo from a company that I do business with. Ralphie says you should have your Gordie Howe mug there with you, Stephon. Yeah, you probably should. Marty says he met me and then wanted to be me when he grew up.
Oh God, you remember Marty, the old guy who was friends with Jesus, and
I do remember Marty. I remember seeing Marty with you set up with you at the Expo, and set up with you again just at the National in Chicago here. Very nice gentleman, Marty. If you're still watching, glad to have you hanging out with us here tonight. PLJ wants to know, how is collecting while being away from home to play hockey? And I want to come back to that one in a second, because we're going to tie that into a few other things that we were talking about. So we will get back to that. Jason says he remembers when you started in the Facebook groups and eventually you migrated your way to JPMs. What else does Jason say? Jeremy, I think I have a picture of us at one of the restaurants a few years ago with all of us. I'll have to find it. Yeah, I'd love to see that, Jason. Definitely do. And then Marty says, I met Stephon when he was 15 and spent 5 days with the most mature 15-year-old I ever met. We've been friends since and get together at National. I mean, and Marty's no spring chicken, right? I mean, Marty's got to be in his 50s or so, I would think. Marty, I hope you're not younger and I just said you're in your 50s. You're in your 50s, but
1873 or something along those, give or take 5 years in the 18th.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I agree with Marty. You are certainly a mature guy for your age, Stephon. You don't come across as a 21-year-old. What Sam got to say. Good evening, Sam. Thanks for joining us again. And Adam, Stephon Youngblood representing. It's awesome. We're going to just go through a few more of these. Just think one of the biggest Facebook card groups was started by a 14, 15-year-old at the time. Great to see you younger. Yeah, Nick, I mean, I completely agree. And we underestimate as a hobby just how many younger people there are. If you go to, and for us, the people watching that are like hockey guys that are in Canada that go to the Expo, we see some young people there, but if you really want to see young people really enjoying and being active and participating in the hobby, you have to go to the National. First of all, the show is way bigger than the Expo, and it's filled with just so much action and a lot of young people running around. By young, I mean the 10 to 20-year-olds. There's just a lot of them for sure.
Yeah. Let me just step in. I didn't start JPM just before one of the other.
Before people think you did.
I was lucky enough to take an admin role on later on, but I didn't start it. But I just wanted to make that clear.
But you're an admin there, and you're an active admin, and you run group breaks in there. I see you in there, very active. Jason has another question. You have $500 to start in the hobby. What do you do? I think we're going to come back to that because we're going to talk about that later. We have that on the agenda. Ralphie, I remember when I showed Stephon a Gordie Howe Peerless Whalers, and he didn't believe me that it existed. Hilarious. Well, it does. It does. I think it's out of 5, right? And Barry, I remember the Gordie Howe PC being shown off on Hobby Insider. I was super impressed for a younger guy having direction and focus, which is great because I think if there's young people watching that, they should reach out to a guy like Stephon and get advice from someone who's in their sort of age range. And I think you can be an inspiration to people to really understand how someone younger can actually navigate their way through the hobby amongst older veterans like myself and others who, can be quite savvy at times, and you don't want to fall behind and get trapped in anything. So you're someone who could really provide some guidance. I think you should. This is just new thought in my mind, but this is something that you should, Stephon. I'd like to see you embrace and really take a role in that somehow or other. But maybe some discussion for later. Tim says Stephon's slowly getting all of my PC into his own collection. So I know Tim's got an amazing collection. He loves his vintage patches and that, and he's got
my favorite card I got from Tim. Still one of my favorite cards.
Anyone out there who's on Instagram, you want to follow Tim. I think he's at Chili Cards, Chili like CHILLY Cards. He shows off some awesome stuff. So go ahead and follow Tim on Instagram, guys. Amit, welcome to the show. Young people are at the shows with the cash, so it's about time we paid them some respect. It's true. I mean, these young guys have wads of cash on them. I mean, here you were, a 14-year-old at the expo with $2,000 in your pocket in 2014. I mean, the money was worth more back then than it is now. That was quite a load of money, right?
Yeah, well, that's all thanks to that Gretzky card that I pulled. Literally, like, I wouldn't have gone to the expo that year or had any cash to spend at the expo if it wasn't for that one card. But I see kids at the National, like, especially the National. I haven't been to Toronto Expo in probably, I think it was 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was. But the National, it is insane. These kids that come up to the table and they will point at a $15,000 card, a $10,000 card, and they'll haggle with you. They're like, would you do 12K for it? I experienced this firsthand at my booth. It wasn't my card. It was a guy I was set up with. And the guy couldn't have been older than 16. Yeah. And was haggling between $13,000 and $14,000. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, there's no way. Like, and it's mind-blowing, but it's good. It's good that these kids, you know, wherever they get their money, I have no idea, that they're in the hobby and they're putting this cash back in the hobby, because that's how you get addicted. And that's, I mean, when even guys, you know, it's going to start with the older guys, and when they, you know, pass away, someone's going to have to buy the collections and keep the collecting going. And it's good and promising that there's young people in the hobby, and we need to, you know, somehow as a community find a way to get more youth involved. And I think Upper Deck, you know, does a good job with that. And yeah, I think just whenever we have a chance, we should embrace young guys in this hobby for sure.
Right. And don't look when they come, if you see them at a card show, you see them online, let's not disrespect them just because they're younger. Take them seriously. And you know what? Because you just don't know who you're dealing with. I've had people come up, I've had young guys come up to and women for that matter, young girls, young guys come up to my shows, come up to my booth at Expo, at the National when I was set up there. And, you know, they're like, hey, do you want to see what I got? And I'm like, sure. So I'll never say no to anybody who wants to show me their cards. I'll say, sure, let's see what you got. I open it up, and I mean, I'm looking through cards, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 cards, one after the other. And I look back up, I'm like, what? Where did you get these cards? Like, how did you? What do you do for a living at 15 years old? You can walk around with $30,000 worth of cards in your box. It blows my mind. I think we have to just kind of nurture that and hope that these guys are going to be lifers and keep on in the hobby. So, okay, back to some comments here, Stephon. Marty has a question, and it's going to be hard to answer these all because we want to get back to a bit more about your history. But where do you think the hobby is going with all the product doubling on release day, distributors holding product back, prices going up? We will get to that, Stephon, in a little bit. But Grant wants to pay you the ultimate compliment that you are his mentor. You are Grant Patterson's mentor.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've guided that kid since day one in the hobby. He's, you know, he pretty much has all his thanks to me for sure.
Yeah, here's a great. I like this one. I want you to answer this one now because this is a great question. I like the insightful ask. That Brett always has great questions. But have you ever thought about how, like, where would you be right now? How different would your collecting journey been if you didn't pull that Gretzky out of that one pack of the Cup? A $400 pack yielded you a $1,800 card. Do you ever think about that? Like, do you ever kind of look back and thank your lucky stars?
Yeah, especially like, you know, since I knew I was doing the show, I thought about that, and I don't know where I would have been. I know for a fact I wouldn't have gone to the expo that spring, and I know for a fact I wouldn't have, you know, gone that Howe card. Would I still be in the hobby? Yeah, I think so. Where would it be like where I am today, or, you know, the knowledge I've, you know, gained today? I don't know. Like I said, being at that expo really, you know, opened my world to how the hobby really is. And I learned so much just in those 3 days that I don't think I would, you know, be what I'm doing today and, you know, where my collection's at today if I didn't pull that card, because that's literally the sole reason why I got to go to the expo and, you know, just embrace that. So
wow.
I'm really lucky. And especially like the crazy part of that story is that my mom bought it off of eBay and from a guy who had 100 feedback in it. You just, your rule of thumb is, don't buy wax off of eBay unless if it's a really recognizable seller. So,
right. I think the biggest fear with buying a tin of the cup off of eBay is that somebody opened up the first couple tins, hit what they deemed to be the case hit, and now they're going to sell the others to some suckers. And I'm guessing that would have been a case hit back in the day. A Gretzky Limited Logos Oilers uniform out of 10 has to be a case hit.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ralphie says, you've definitely have great knowledge on how and great insight multiple times. So, you've got reach in the hobby. People know you. They definitely respect you, which is great. And then I like this comment from Chris. Someone remind me to bring a full box of Pro Set Platinum to Jeremy to blow his mind at a show. It doesn't take me long to determine how long I'm going to look at someone's cards for when I do open it up, but I will look through, especially when it's someone younger. I will definitely look through their cards because I don't want to disrespect them, or and they're with their parents, and I think it's just important to do that for all show dealers. I think it's really important for all show dealers to really, when a kid comes to your table and you don't think they're going to have much for you, if you're not super busy, give them the time of day. It might it might make them feel respected, liked, and it might make them somebody who's going to stick in the hobby instead of somebody who has a bad experience because some arsehole of a vendor didn't give them the time of day or just shoot them away. So I think that's really important. On that note, Marty calls Grant a turd. Okay.
I love the banter. That's what's so fun in this hobby is you just create friends and they're just like high school buddies again.
Exactly. Old buddies, right? We can always bug each other. Don't forget the pogs for sure. And what does Nick says? Not many vendors are like you. You're one of the more humble and professionals in the hobby. Nick, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I just try to treat people with respect. And, but people have disrespected me at my booth and I basically told them to go away because, I only so much time in the day, right? But in general, as a default, I think we should be respecting the people that come to our booths and giving them some time a day, especially the younger people, because we may in that one instant turn them into a lifer in this hobby. And if they love it as much as we do, then I think we're doing them a service. So that's great. The Moose is asking, would you ever consider a full-time employment in the sports card industry? Okay, I'm going to hold this question here. We're going to hold the comments for a minute because I want to go back now to to tie into the earlier questions. The one about collecting when you're living away from home. So you said earlier that you moved to Canada to play hockey, which you do still play. You play semi-pro or whatever you play. You've had offers to go play in Europe. It's about your hockey career, but I want to keep it on cards. But why don't you tell us about when you moved to Canada and you went to Kelowna specifically, and how the card shop there and who you met there and what you learned from the guys at the local card shop in Kelowna, BC, Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. So I moved to play at Pursuit of Excellence Hockey Academy in Kelowna. I moved away from Colorado to Kelowna when I was 14. And that was just that was before the cut box and everything. It was that coming up Christmas where that happened. So I was still really new in the hobby and, really just interested in everything and still learning everything. So, obviously the first thing that I did when I got to Kelowna was Google, are there any sports card shops near me? And Player's Choice in Kelowna, Jason and Dean there. Every off day I had, damn near I spent in that shop, just probably annoying the crap out of Jason and Dean. I just hung out there a lot, constantly, just looking at how they dealt with their customers, how they wheel and dealed, how they ran a business of a sports card shop. And they taught me a ton and they were always awesome to me. And that it's one of the best shops. I know they won an award by Upper Deck, but they really that's the first experience I had learning the business side of the hobby, which I took a huge interest into, and just kind of how the hobby worked from a business standpoint. So Jason and Dean taught me a ton early on.
And did you pay for that education? Did you spend money in their shop along the way?
I definitely spent a lot of money in that shop. Every chance I got, I was buying a box or buying into their breaks or wheeling and dealing at trade nights. And I spent my fair share of cash at that shop. To amount to the time I was in there, probably didn't match up, but
That's
they
okay.
dealt with it good.
I mean, yeah, a younger guy coming in the shop. I mean, I owned a shop in Winnipeg from 1991 until 1994, and I was a youngster at the time. And I loved when people came out and hung out with me. A young guy, whoever, didn't matter. It was just awesome to have people hanging out with you in your shop, especially if there was no one else there. You want, company's always nice. So if you had to say, like, what was the key business lesson you learned from those guys? Hobby business lesson. Ooh. And I know we didn't talk about this when we kind of prepped for this, but is there, and while you're thinking about that, I mean, I'll just say, for as far as Player's Choice and Jason and Dean goes, I think Jason bought out Dean, so it's Jason's store now.
Yeah.
And you know what, my folks actually live in Kelowna, BC. So when I go there for my summer vacation, I go to that shop all the time and see those guys. So they're great guys. They have a great shop, and I know they're doing online Facebook. They have a Facebook page, and they're doing, I think, one or two nights a week, they're doing live auctions of cards. They're doing basketball and hockey cards. And so if anyone else is listening and wants to go check them out, you should go do that. That's Stefan's original, or I guess your second LCS, if you will, after Fruitman's in Colorado, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you kind of think of something there that might be the one business lesson you learned from watching these guys operate?
Absolutely. And it was more from Jason. It was just kind of the art of wheeling and dealing. He still does. I'm pretty sure you're just, buying out big collections, piecing it out and finding the contacts to get these cards and making money off of it. I thought it was super cool. So I just kind of learned, and I watched a ton, and, probably had 100 conversations with Jason about, just, the little details on, what you need to do to be a successful, and that's just being a salesman and a businessman. You have to be personable, and guys need to like you. And I just thought it was really cool buying collections and flipping them and ending up making money on them. And I've been doing that for the last 7 years. So that's definitely the one thing that I could probably highlight from that.
Cool. I remember being at shows set up at the same shows with those guys, and they'd buy full tables, full booths at the end of the show on the regular. They did it all the time. And then you go to their shop, and those purchases, that bulk inventory that they had, was sitting boxed up upstairs, never to see the light of day, because they just didn't have the manpower, the hours to deal with it. I think they're finally starting to get organized and really do that. So kudos to them. That's great. Okay, back to a couple comments from the last discussion. Oh boy, there's a long one. Let's see. Brett says, good advice. Lots of opportunities to educate and inspire people, not just the younger crowd. Yeah, and I'm glad Brett points that out, because I was being a little biased towards the youngsters, but really, I mean, we should be doing it for everybody. And then Chris makes a very astute comment here that you can't judge a buyer based on their appearance. Not everyone wears their money. And true story. I mean, there's a guy that comes to mind that walks around the expo, and if he came to your booth, you might not give him the time of day. And I just know this guy's got a lot of money to spend if he wants to. And there's many guys like that out there, right? I mean, and those are the people that I kind of respect the most, that aren't looking to attract attention to themselves and kind of go about it on the down low, right? And they're not there just to flaunt their money, but they love their cards. They love their high-end cards. So they buy those high-end cards. Staying on the top of the youngsters, Jason has a very long comment. I'm going to throw it up. As long as it doesn't cut off our chins, Jason, we'll put it up there, but it does. So I'll read it instead. You agree on trying to bring the younger generation in. Many times you've done this with kids, also tried to work with them when they didn't have much to help grow their collection. Stefan is different than a good portion in the way he handles himself, very mature beyond his years, and has been great help in the hobby. Stefan Perot might be a great person to connect to the younger generation, showing them how to act within the hobby. And yeah, I mean, like I said, you can be a real inspiration and a mentor to young people, because you're in their age range. Marty says, I go back now over 40 years as a collector, dealer, show promoter, and I've seen a huge shift from $10 boxes to the boxes for $600 to $3,000. It's a hobby. Has the hobby become overpriced? Where is it headed? Let's tackle that. Let's tackle that one, Stefan. Like, how do you feel about that? Is the hobby becoming too overpriced, and where is it headed? And I got my thoughts on that too, but you go first.
Absolutely. So the hobby's a weird time right now. I don't know obviously I've only been in it the last 7-8 years, so you would probably know the more history on it, especially in the 90s. But there's a weird time. Never in a million years did I think that this virus would kickstart the hobby. If anything, like at the very first, I was like, okay, breakers are probably going to be doing well. Wax is going to be doing well because guys are going to be bored. And but I thought singles were definitely going to take a hit. I really did. And now, I mean, singles, certain singles, especially in the basketball market right now, and wax is just, higher than we've ever seen before. Do I think it's sustainable? Some, I think a lot of the singles are getting their appreciation will be sustainable. A lot of the vintage, all-time greats, blue chip cards, I think those will be sustainable. I don't think wax will be sustainable as in every release quadrupling or times 6 or times 7 the price of retail that where it's supposed to be. Like Mosaic released today in the basketball world, and cost on that was $99. It's selling for $800 on the big retailer sites. So I don't think long-term that's sustainable. I really don't. I think the basketball hobby, obviously it's, a once in a generation rookie class. So that's helped. The Last Dance has helped. And believe it, like COVID has helped a lot too. Mm-hmm. So with all of those, being factors into this, it's drive the hobby to, I think, at least in my 8 years, an all-time high by far in a way. You can go back farther than me on that. So like I said, the blue chip single, rookies and the singles that are staples in the hobby, I think those will be sustainable and you'll keep seeing climb in price. But as far as the wax goes, I can't see, releases selling for 8 times what they're originally supposed to. I just can't personally see it, but what do I know?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that comment. I don't see that being the case every year. I think it's really has to do with the rookies in the product, and basketball has had a really good run. But you go back in time to, I remember the first $100 pack of cards. I think it was, in being a predominantly a hockey guy, being Upper Deck Ultimate. And then I remember even in the Game Ultimate at $100, $150 a pack. I think they maybe debuted around the same time. And then all of a sudden the Cup came out, which, and Exquisite. And now you've got packs back then they were only like $350 Canadian, maybe, $250 US, whatever it is. So all of a sudden you had these packs that were way more than $100. Here they are, $350, $400 a pack. And then as the years went by, different companies put out different products until even like last year, I believe Leaf put out Leaf Pearl, which was $2,000 for a pack. I mean, so how Marty's question, like how far can they push it? And I mean, there are products, I think you can get products at the $10,000 level, certain things by, special.
Topps Transcendent, sorry to cut you off, but Topps Transcendent, that's like $25,000 for a box. Like,
sure.
But yeah, I think that's the highest selling,
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy that they keep pushing the level of the pack price up and up and up. But the fact of the matter is today's dollar is worth a lot less than it was 15 years ago. So what was $300 then is like more like $500 now. I mean, I'm not doing the actual inflation calculation in my head here, but something to that effect. So, I mean, I think there is room for expensive products in the hobby. And like you said, in terms of the blue chip players, those guys aren't ever going to go away. The iconic Hall of Famers are never going to go away. Kind of leads me to a question for you as a younger guy. You never saw Gordie Howe play, Bobby Orr. You maybe never even saw Wayne Gretzky play. I'm not sure. How does a guy, and I mean, I've asked myself the same question because I collect back to the beginning of time as far as cards go. Why do I collect Art Ross or George Vezina or, Jackie Robinson and Sandy Koufax and Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain, like Jim Brown? Why do I collect all these guys when I never saw them play? I don't have a personal connection to them. I ask myself that question all the time. I don't know the answer. So I'm going to ask you instead. What draws you to a guy like Gordie Howe?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've always been a hockey nerd. whether it's watching the NHL current day, keeping up every single day with the standing stats, scoring leaders. I'm just as much as a hockey history buff. For a 21-year-old, I'm pretty sure I could go toe-to-toe with anyone my age or close to around my age with a hockey history or hockey history trivia. And I always saw Gordie as the iconic figure of the NHL. Yeah, you had Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, you had Bobby Orr. But there's something about Gordie, just the way that he played, where he was, I don't want to say a goon, but he was an enforcer. He was a goal scorer. He did everything. And there's something that kind of just drew me to that. And at the same time, I knew that whatever I wanted to collect, I wanted to hold value. So at the time, I was looking at it, and this isn't a knock to Gretzky collectors at all. I said, I collect Wayne Gretzky, or I could collect Gordie Howe. And to me, I thought Gordie Howe was the better investment. He was older, his hard signed stuff, and I only collect Gordie Howe hard signed. They were going to become more rare once he passed away. And I looked at that as an opportunity to collect what I wanted to and what I would cherish, but at the same time, have my collection to have the chance to shoot up in value when, unfortunately, Gordie did pass away, and it panned out. My Gordie collection, I probably paid peanuts to what it's worth today. So that was my stance and view on it. And yeah, it's worked out so far.
Yeah. And I think part of it for you is that you just respect the history of the game and you love the game. You play you're actually a hockey player too. So yeah. for to see a hockey player, a young hockey player investing in Gordie Howe, who one of the other reasons why you didn't mention it, but if I was thinking, why would a guy collect him? Well, everyone knows Wayne Gretzky, and Wayne Gretzky idolized Gordie Howe. So that just tells you that Gordie Howe is definitely worthy of collecting for any collector ever. And if you, you tie that into, wanting to hold value and wanting to really, respect the history of the game, I think you picked a pretty good player there. So speaking of investment, Brett makes another good comment as usual. We can all enjoy this hobby at any investment level, as long as the individual is aware of what they can and can't chase. Not everyone can shop in the luxury car shop. That's right. I mean, we all have our own different, our the means that we have or what we have, and how we decide to allocate those means and deploy our money into the hobby or on food and rent and cars and that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely. And Reckless completely agrees with Brett, but I do think the price of most boxes now scare off a lot of people. Yeah, I think you know what? It scares off a lot of people, but it doesn't seem to matter as far as the card companies go because they're selling through anyway. So the nice thing, though, is that the people who are scared off by some of the higher prices, there are affordable options out there. Like Upper Deck as far as hockey goes and Tops as far as baseball goes. I mean, these guys make sure that there's something out there for everybody. So, you maybe can't have the big stuff but if you're younger or even if you're kind of on the upward trajectory of your earning potential, you can be introduced to the hobby at a more affordable product point or price point for a product, and then eventually graduate up as time goes by. So, right. I mean, we all kind of, I think, make our way over time and kind of find our way through to what's next and what we're always wanting more things, right? We're always wanting more cards, new cards, better cards, nicer cards, and more cards, which I think I said twice, right? So, okay. So, you had the Kelowna experience, you've been to the shows, you're rubbing shoulders with all the veterans, all the sharks in the hobby, and you've developed the savviness yourself. You've got a lot of contacts through JPMs and now you're on Instagram, and you're starting a YouTube channel. So right now I have your Instagram and your YouTube channel on the bottom of the screen and the ticker. And I'm asking people, subscribe to your YouTube channel, but be warned, there's no content up there yet. You're just getting started, but I thought we'll throw it up there anyways, because you're going to be, you got a plan. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you plan to do with your YouTube channel?
Yeah. So I've been working on it for about a month now. School kind of got in the way with finals and everything. I just wrapped up my first year at university. So that kind of took priority in it. But now that school's done, it's been done for about a week now. I've been really trying to hammer getting this YouTube channel started. And honestly, it's going to be an unfiltered, just hobby talk show. I'm not really expecting it to blow up or do anything huge or make waves, but I just am looking to, kill some time and talk about the hobby, and have some fun with it. It's going to be there's tons of YouTube channels out there. Like you mentioned before, PSA Collector, Sports Card Investor, Phil's Polls is a great channel. House of Jordans, like you've mentioned a few times, that's a great channel. But other than there's not really a hockey focused channel out there to my knowledge. If there is, I apologize. So yeah, I just want to start a YouTube channel that talks about the hobby, the current state of the hobby, what's hot, what's cold. Do box reviews every once in a while for new products that release, in case guys are wondering what a product looks like and if they're interested in it. And yeah, just kind of shoot the shit, and excuse my French, and just have a good time.
Right on. Okay, sounds good. I mean, I can't wait to see some content on there and watch your first video. And if you need any tips, if I can help you at all, just shout out. No problem at all. Adam has a comment. YouTube is great as a great thing for viewing past players, and always pays homage to the GOATs. Always respect my elders. I mean, that's a really good point too, because while we never saw some of those original Hall of Famers play, and I mean, I shouldn't say original because that even predates like moving pictures and that, but TV and video, I would say. But to watch Gordie Howe, Bobby Orr, those guys, Wayne Gretzky, there's no shortage of footage out there even for collectors to start to really understand just how good these guys were. Similar to the way over the past 5 weeks, every sports fan in the world has realized just how dominant Michael Jordan was, that he could basically, if you looked at him funny, he could just win the game because he would have it no other way. And the whole, I mean, kind of off topic, but the whole LeBron versus Jordan, who's the GOAT of all time, or the GOAT, who's the GOAT? I mean, there's no doubt in my mind after that documentary that it's Michael Jordan. I mean, no one has the competitive fire that guy had. Nobody in the world, probably. It's
And to expand on that comment, the amount of hockey footage I've watched on YouTube of Gordie and the old players is sickening. I've spent way too much time watching that, and even older players like Eddie Shack, Cyclone Taylor, George Vezina, Art Ross, those guys I've watched footage and documentaries on, and it's cool stuff. Like, if you have time to kill during this quarantine, do some research. It's super interesting stuff if you're a hockey fan, and it's always good to have knowledge. It's good. It's good dinner talk.
That's right. And you might find someone new that you want to collect, or you might just decide, I'm gonna watch a little clip of all these different guys, and I'm gonna go buy one card of each of them or something. Whatever it is. I mean, we all approach it differently, but here's a good point. Another one from Brett. I've learned over the years that I can enjoy and appreciate other people's collections. Such a great part of the hobby. And I mean, that's what's wonderful about online, like the Instagrams, the Facebooks, the message boards, and YouTube. I mean, people showing their collections, like, that's what I want to see. I want to see people's cards, and I want to see people talking about the hobby like we're doing right now. There's a comment here from an anonymous Facebook user. I'll read it because it's really nice. I've been in the hobby almost 40 years and have dealt with countless folks, all good folks. I've known Stephon for 5 to 6 years through the Facebook pages. And I can say he's one of the very few folks that I can count on 10 fingers and toes at an eyes closed for when dealing with him at his youth. He's a very strong asset to have, and he has my respect most of the time.
It's probably Fruitman. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that's Mike Fruitman.
Great. Well, thank you if that's
wrong.
Well, hey, you may as well speculate. If that is Mike, thanks for watching the show. It says, good idea. Hockey needs more content, which I definitely agree with. Chris wishes there was a way to watch older games in not 240p quality. Well, yeah, that would be nice. All the Kobe fans have disappeared lately. Must be talking about the GOAT versus GOAT discussion. Brett says, I said hi to Mike last week. He went on to drop 53 points on me at the next night. Yeah, that was a quote from the one of the last episodes there. Yeah. I said hi to him, and he said, "No, I'm not having you say hi to me. I'm gonna beat you, and I'm gonna beat you bad." Right? What does Chris say? MJ has a sheer will and determination to win. LeBron doesn't base on his failures throughout his career. Well, I mean, I can't speak to the LeBron piece as much, but I can definitely speak to the MJ piece. And yeah, he's something for sure. What does John say? John says, Poe, that refers to you. Poe is
you on most sites. Yeah.
It's another name you've used. You're great for the hobby. Wise beyond your years. John has asked you advice numerous times on breaking in the hobby, and he's in his 30s. So here we have a guy in his 30s who's calling on a guy who's 21 years old for advice. And I mean, that's just the way it is, right? I mean, you have expertise because you're committed, man. I mean, you're committed to this hobby. I just know that from knowing you, right? Like, you're in it.
I am, yeah, and I don't plan on getting out of it anytime soon.
You're a lifer. Billy asks, am I jealous of Stefon's amazing flow of lettuce? Also, did I hear you say you want a $30,000 box? So for anyone who doesn't know, Billy Celio is a product engineer, I'll call him, at Upper Deck. So basically the cards that we're breaking, Billy builds many of the sets for Upper Deck, both hockey and entertainment, and does a great job at it. So Billy, to answer your question, jealous.
Yeah,
jealous of the flow. I haven't had flow like that since I was his age, since I was in my early 20s. And I had it at one time. I did have it at one time, but not anymore. Not anymore. Richard says, I agree there's a price point for everyone. That said, I got to look around the camera. Do you think the soaring prices will turn younger collectors away? I think we kind of addressed this one already. He does bring up the Tim Hortons cards, which are a great introductory product for people, very collectible. Kids and adults alike are collecting that. I mean, at the monthly card show here in where I live in Calgary, there's all sorts of guys in their 50s, 60s, 70s that come in looking for their Timmy's cards because it's just a fun set to collect, a really fun set to collect. So awesome. Okay, there's a few more comments here. I like this from Paul. He started watching basketball just to cheer against LeBron. And you know what? Let's just talk about that for 1 second, because I remember when I kind of felt the same way back when he had the decision, the big reveal of what team he was going to sign on when players can decide who they play for and all that. And I thought, wow, this guy's pretty full of himself, but hey, he's LeBron James. I guess if anyone's going to be full of themselves, it might be one of the best basketball players in the world. But when my opinion turned on LeBron, it was when I learned about the school that he built in Akron, Ohio, his hometown, for students to go and get a good education. And I mean, the guy gives back a lot. And I think you may not love his game or some of his attitude sometimes, I'm not sure, but I have an immense amount of respect for LeBron. And I think what he's doing for society is much more important than what he does or doesn't do on the court. And, from what he does on the court, he has the financial wherewithal and the ability to really help people. And I think he's changed a lot of lives with what he's doing with that school. So I think that's pretty amazing. All right. Well, we'll throw this one up here, John. So Billy, are you the reason my last cup case had 4 Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou booklets and 4 Bobrovskys and Shrymans? Well, busting balls. Fair enough. I can actually speak to that, John, because I've attended an Upper Deck pack out for the cup. And I can tell you, it's just luck. It's just coincidence, because these guys, they pack the packs, and then they're like, the packs are basically mixed. So there's one group of boxes of the cup that are the case hits, and everything else is a pack that doesn't have the case hit, and they go into this bin. I've seen it. They're not thrown in; they're placed in there. I got to put some in myself, as long as they're still doing it that way. And then the cards, the cases are built from there, making sure that every case has one pack that had a case hit in it. So I see all the time online people complaining about the collation in the high-end products. And I think it's just a byproduct of having a hand-packed product. And I think it's just bad luck is really all it is. So I don't think they're doing it on purpose. That is from firsthand experience attending and helping out at a cup pack out, which I did in 2009 for the 0809 release. Here we go. Sorry. Barry wants to know, Stefan, do you collect anything but hockey? And if so, what do you PC? And let's do that, because we do have a lot of non-hockey viewers as well. So let's give them something to think about.
Absolutely. So I was talking to Jeremy last night actually about this. So my main PC is Gordie. I think that's the only, non-touchable stuff that I own. Although I recently, the last couple of years, I have expanded into all sports, as far as, buying, trying to prospect, buying, flipping, and stuff like that. So currently, obviously, I think everybody has kind of flowed over to the basketball hobby this year. Baseball with Bowman releasing, I think Friday with Jason Dominguez. He's the hottest, Yankees prospect since Mickey Mantle, apparently. That's going to be a huge release. So I kind of just go with the flow when it's not with my Gordie PC. I only break hockey. I know hockey the best. That's my passion. So I wouldn't say I PC anything other than Gordie, but I definitely have cards with me that I've held for years that isn't hockey, and I'm going to continue to do so.
Awesome. Okay. I want to throw this one up here. Jason says he just subscribed to your Instagram. Looking forward to your post. So guys, I've got his Instagram flowing along the bottom here on the ticker. So be sure to follow Stephon on Instagram. You can also follow me on Instagram if you're not already. I'll throw that up there, right there. Okay. So awesome. Marty says you do Pokemon. Any truth to that? Okay, you do.
Although I wish I did. The amount of money that is in Pokemon right now, especially for that first edition stuff, is mind-boggling. So I really wish when I was little I held on to all my Pokemon stuff. I really wish I did.
I hear you, man. When I first moved out to Calgary in 2002, I met some guys that played it. And so they invited me over and I played it one night. It was the only time I ever played it. And now I sure wish I could go back in time and play it again in 2002 and just take some cards with me. Chris wants to know, do you have any Charizards, that being the most valuable of all? And then Barry says Dominguez is also a switch hitter like Mantle and close to your age. So, hey,
he's younger than I am. So yeah. These guys coming to the hobby that are, selling for thousands of dollars, I always looked up to them. And now I'm like, man, I'm getting old now.
Exactly. Okay, I'll put a couple of the upcoming shows on the ticker now. We've got Brian Price coming up on this Saturday, everybody, starting early at 9 o'clock Eastern. And then the following Saturday on the 30th, we have your fellow viewer right now, Billy Celio, who is a product designer, engineer for Upper Deck. So excited to have Billy on. He's going to tell us how he goes about actually building a set from scratch and what it takes, not only from scratch when it's a new product, but I'm hoping Billy will also talk about what goes through his mind when he's trying to, make a follow-up product and make it even better than in the previous years. So looking forward to both of those shows. Those should be awesome, guys. So be sure to tune in for those. Okay, I'm going to run through the comments that have just been coming up in the last little bit here. Let's do this one. Another one. Brett, man, you're on fire tonight. You're always on fire, but tonight especially. Brett says, what would a week or month in your collecting world be like? Buying a bunch of cards to flip? How many wantless items do you chase? Address this one quickly, the first part especially, if you don't mind, Stephon.
Yeah, that's a loaded question, so I'll try to make this as short as possible. So honestly, it depends what time of the year it is. August through May. Now it's school and hockey. It used to be just hockey when I was playing juniors. So I have a lot less time. I still manage to do breaks, but I only break new products that come out. Other than that, my buying and flipping is really quiet during those months. I still do it when I can. If a collection stumbles upon me, I will buy it and slowly piece it out. But now that I'm home, when I'm home, that's when I go full throttle and, I'm constantly buying collections and, whether I'm listing it on eBay, I have a lot of connections now and where I'll buy these cards and I know exactly who to go to. So I usually you won't even see the collections I buy being posted.
Because you're moving them before you get the chance to sometimes.
Exactly. I just picked up a huge collection the other day and it's all vintage golf, 1910 to 1940 vintage golf. And so that one's going to be a huge challenge for me, but I'm looking forward to it. It's crazy cool stuff. So that's one challenge that I'm looking forward to. But yeah, that it honestly, to get back to the question, it just depends what type of year or what time of the year it is.
And you're going to learn a lot from that golf, and then, from that golf collection, which might make you an expert and may help you to spot opportunities down the road. Okay. Richard says Pokemon is crazy hot right now. Yeah. I mean, I saw PWCC's new listings last night or today. And I mean, those Pokemon cards are already like, there's several of them over $500. And I don't really know who these characters are, but they're going nuts. Jason says that Stephon PC's green printed bills of Benjamin Franklin. I think we all try to do that. And Marty says that Mantle was to baseball what Jordan was to basketball. I mean, it sure seems to be that way, right? I mean, his Mantle stuff is super, super hot. Always has been. Brian McDonald says hello.
Brian, how's it going?
Richie Barone, the mayor of Canada, says, "What's up, brother?" Richie, always a pleasure to see you. And then Will has a question for you, and then we're going to go to another topic. Will says, has there been any product releases lately that have blown you away? I mean, I'm going to say for me, sorry, Stephon, I know this question's directed to you, but I'm liking this Topps Project 2020 baseball thing. I'll just put it out there. I think it's cool. It's a cross-section of sports and art. It's going to bring in several new people to the hobby, but you go, you take it from there, Stephon.
Yeah, so by blown me away, I'm going to take that as a positive, if any product has blown me away in a positive light. And honestly, I really liked, I'm such a minority when it comes to this, I think, but I loved 1920 Allure that came out in the beginning of the year. And that's a insert driven lower end product, but the inserts were awesome in the die cuts. And I'm a lot like Jeremy, where I have a side collection of, cool inserts and things like that. So that was a product that I thought was really cool. In the other sports, I haven't done a ton of research on it. I just watched a few case breaks today, but the Mosaic basketball that came out today, even though it's a stupid price, it's an awesome looking product as far as the design that Panini used to make the cards. And what I really like about Prism and Mosaic from Panini is that it's not an autograph driven product at all. It's the inserts and the cool looking designs that sell. And I'm hoping one day that resonates to hockey. I pray that it resonates to hockey one day, because I think it's so much cooler to have a set that carries value of something that's not a memorabilia or an autograph.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly resonates with me. I mean, that's what I like when I see a new product. I actually did a search on eBay today for credentials, and I was looking as I was scrolling through, and all these cards had autographs on them. And I thought, I'm just rolling right by. I don't want the autographs. To me, they make the card look a little bit messier. Not all I love autos in some cases, but for me, I'm now focused more on non-autographs. I mean, I like the shiny, rare inserts as well. So
that as well. They had some really cool inserts with it. I forget what they were called, but they had the insert set. I know Capo Caco was posing like he was the Statue of Liberty, and Brent Burns was Chewbacca, and
right. Yes. I actually have a saved search for those on my eBay, because I thought I might go after them. I'm going to go see what those are called right now, because I forget off the top of my Credentials Pro Visions. That's what they're called. Yeah.
And I thought that was unbelievable. I think we need more stuff like that. Billy, if you're watching, please bring back Precious Metal Gems, please.
Yeah. Well, and there's only 6 cards in that particular set. So okay, let's roll through some more comments here. Amit says, yeah, Project 2020, take my money. They had an art card featuring Mr. Cartoon, who was the artist. So blown away. Richie loves the shiny cards. Amit says, Synergy is probably one of my favorite sets. It's got all the pizzazz. I mean, I love Synergy. I know a lot of people don't, but I think that's a bit of a sleeper for down the road. There's a lot of cool looking cards in there. Says Credentials looks good too. And then back up here to Brian's question. We know you love vintage, Stephon. What's your nicest piece of Howe memorabilia as a Howe collector? So why don't we take this minute, show us a couple of your Howe cards. Okay. If you guys could hold the comments, because I want to move on to another topic. We're going to then talk about, after you show a few cards, Stephon, we're going to switch to talking about investing in cards and, what your take is on it. And then we're going to go and talk about some tips that you have for new or younger collectors getting into the hobby. So
Perfect.
Let's start with, why don't you show us some of your favorite Gordie Howe cards?
So I brought out 5. It's my top 5 favorite. It was really hard to choose. So it's a very well-known card. It's the Buried Treasures of Gordie from probably one of my favorite sets of all time. It speaks for itself. I don't have to say anything for it.
Let me just say, that's National Treasures, so a very well-known brand outside of just hockey. That particular card is numbered out of 5.
Yes.
And I know that those are extremely popular with both. I mean, there's people doing the sets, and there's only 5 possible. Absolutely popular with both player collectors and set collectors.
So that's number 5. Number 4, and it's numbered out of 4. It's another one. I hope they bring this back one day because these sets are awesome. But I think Carvin touched on it on Carvin's episode, your first episode. I think it was Carvin, and it's the Stanley Cup Titleist Set. And that's numbered out of 4 of Gordie, and it's 4 Stanley Cups. And I mean, again, it's self-explanatory. The camera doesn't do it justice.
You know what? It's one of those cards that it's got a single color jersey or patch piece in it, but I love how it's in the shape of the Stanley Cup. Cup Titleist. The other thing is that set has never been redone. It wasn't recurring in any other years of the Cup. So whichever year that's from, and I don't remember off the top of my head, that is like a one-of-a-kind type of thing. They never did them again, and I don't know if they ever will. I guess time will tell.
That was 05-06, the Cup. That was
that's the first year. Even more special then, for sure.
Another one, I got this from Tim, Chili Cards, and that's the Peerless Patches. And just the aesthetics of this card, the design, the picture, the gold finish on it, and then the end piece of the wheel. I actually think it's awesome having, a piece of the patch and then a piece of the jersey in the same card. And that's numbered out of 5 as well. And that's from 11-12 Dominion. This one is the only limited logos. I'm going to take it out of this sleeve, actually. It's the only time they did this card with him, and it's the limited logos from 06-07, the Cup.
Nasty.
And this is, if I didn't acquire this next card, this was my favorite card for years and years and years, and it's pretty self-explanatory. And then this one is, and I give props to Carvin because I think him and I'm forgetting Vegas Puck, Chris. They had a lot to do with this set, and it's from 11-12 Dominion as well.
Wow.
It's the dual Peerless patches of Gordie and Yzerman, and they both have wheels on it, and you get to see the vintage, Detroit wheel with the, I wouldn't say modern, but more modern Detroit wheel. And that's numbered out of 5 as well. And those are my top 5 cards in my collection. It was really hard to choose, but you can't beat, a game used patch and a hard signed auto, in my opinion. That's, kind of what drives my personal collection of Gordie.
I agree. And when you were showing that last card, being your favorite, and you said, it's from Dominion, I thought it was going to be the Had It Stamped It, which is because
I was trying to juggle. I was like, it was hard, but and it really came down to the Had It Stamped It is awesome. I love that card, but I had that card. I sold it to Darcy, who then sold it to you, I believe. So that was also mine at one point. Reckless wants to say, yeah, man, not gonna front. Buddy's hair is fly. Yeah, there's a few of us older guys that might be a little bit jealous of the hair, for sure. A few more comments now, Stephon. Then we'll get to the new topics. Marty, I love Leaf hockey. Such a huge vintage profile. Yeah, I mean they pack the vintage memorabilia into the product over at Leaf. Michael wants to know, where do you do most of your singles pickups? eBay, ComC, shops, shows? You want to answer that one, Steph? Everywhere. I search,
right?
I think I'm known as a prominently, the Gordie Howe collector when it comes to hard signed stuff. So I have a lot of guys, I've had awesome friends. Anytime they see a Gordie auto, they tag me in it on Facebook, or guys reaching out to me for it. Picking up stuff has been harder nowadays because I have a lot of what's out there. But I everything. I've gotten cards from ComC, shops, shows, and eBay. So everywhere.
and and like you said, all the online. And same with me. I think if you're navigating through this hobby and you're putting together a collection and there's cards you want, if you're not kind of looking everywhere, you're maybe just not going to find the cards that you're looking for. And there's so many different places to look now. And I'm noticing even a lot of the guys, like the older generation who might not be as technologically savvy, are starting to become that, because they're realizing that if they're not going to stay with the program, they're going to be left behind. So there's lots of places.
That one.
Lots of places to look. Billy says, I'm so happy I landed the Shanny version of National Treasures auto. I mean, to me, they're centerpiece cards, those Buried Treasures. Absolute centerpieces. They're just, and they're heavy. Like when you hold that card, that's a chunk of metal in there, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. It's one of the best, if not the best set, in my opinion, that's been created modern day.
Exactly. I agree. Reckless says, yeah, it's a beauty. I mean, I don't know which one Reckless is referring to of your 5 cards, but I agree with him on all 5. So it doesn't even really matter.
I think it was referring to here.
Isn't Gordie Howe's signature so silky smooth? Yeah. I mean, he took time. He took a lot of time to sign his autographs all the time when he did sign them. Oh, Michael corrects me, says they did release a few Titleists in 06-07. Good to know. Wasn't sure. Thank you for that clarification. Yes, Sam, Peerless patches are so sick. That booklet, right? I mean, that booklet was amazing. Mitchell has the Grant Fuhr and the Eric Stahl Buried Treasure. So you can see, right, even right here, right now, while we're live on online, people are coming out and saying, I have these cards and I love them in my PCs. Like
I said, they're unbelievable.
Unbelievable. For sure. Okay. All right. So let's switch topics now. Investing in cards. It's kind of a hot topic right now, right? I mean, there's all sorts of content. If you guys are out on YouTube looking for shows to watch, hobby content shows, there's all sorts of people talking about investing. A lot of it is centering around basketball, a little bit on football, and not much on hockey. But when they do talk about hockey, the general sort of consensus is that it's just not, the opportunities aren't really there, which I 100% disagree with, and I've had success with this, so I'm pretty certain of that. But that's just my intro. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about investing? And I'll just preface it to kind of set you up here, because we talked about it a bit last night. So prospecting works in baseball. I want you to talk about that with hockey. And then you've got your 3 kind of criteria in terms of investing. So let's kick it off. Let's get into it.
For sure. That's loaded. So I'll just try to, piece this together one by one. As you said, prospecting. Prospecting is huge in baseball. Probably your guest last show, Barry Grice, I think he was a big baseball collector. So, and probably a lot of viewers know Bowman First, which is actually prospect cards. Those are, the premier rookie cards. They outsell, probably any actual rookie cards that Topps produces during the rookie season. It's their first prospect card. And a lot of the times, you'll be able to buy cards for dirt cheap. Example that comes to my mind is Aaron Judge. When his cards released, they sold for pennies on the dollar, and then he had a blown up season and they were selling for, thousands of dollars. So I think that's the main difference when you're looking at hockey to baseball. So if you bring it on over investing to hockey, it can be done. Is it a lot harder than other sports? Absolutely. You see price jumps in other sports way more drastic than you do in hockey. That being said, I still think that there is opportunity to invest in hockey. Now, there's 2 different types of investing. There's your prospecting, which you're really looking for, your quick flips, which is extremely hard to do. It does happen for sure. Just look at Jarisaitl, look at Pasternak. Those are 2 great examples of, when it does happen, but it is a lot harder and than it is long-term investing, in my opinion. And when it comes to prospecting in hockey, myself personally, I'm sure not, everybody agrees with this, but I have 3 things that I look out for. And one is the country of origin of where the player is from, predominantly, and there are the one-offs for sure. Predominantly, Canadians outsell, players from the USA finish, Russia. You can make the argument with Ovi right now, but he is the best goal scorer of this generation. So it is a one-off. So the country of origin is a huge thing to look out for. The next thing is what type of player he is. Everybody knows, forwards and goal scorers will always outsell defensemen, not outscore. Obviously, they're, most of the time they're going to outscore them. So, a lot of the times the players that are going to sell the best are the flashy goal scorer, point producing players. And lastly is the market they play in. Most of the guys, especially Toronto, original 6 teams, those are going to be the guys that are going to sell the best. If they're a big player, you do have the, guys in, Barkov, I think sells pretty well for being in Florida. Winnipeg sells well, but usually the general rule of thumb is that the big market teams players sell better than the smaller market teams. So those are pretty much the 3 criteria that I use to prospect. And I'll let the cat out of the bag. I'm prospecting Anthony Mantha right now. I think he has immense, upside to his game if he can stay healthy. He had 4 goals in the first game last season, and he was on a roll, leading the league, the first 10 games, and then, he got hurt again. And he checks all 3 boxes. He's Canadian, he plays for Detroit, and he's a goal scorer. So, like I said, there could be one-offs for sure, but that's generally what I look for when I'm trying to prospect hockey cards, which I do for fun. For me, it's not so much like I'm investing all my money into this and I'm living or dying by this. It just gives me a way to, invest in players and watch those. And in a way, it's like sports betting without, placing a bet every night. It's, you're always rooting for those players to do better, and it makes watching the games more fun.
Right. And, one of the reasons why prospecting doesn't work as well in hockey, and it's just a fundamental reason to the hobby, is because in baseball, comparing to baseball, in baseball, these players get cards before they played a major league game. So people are prospecting these kids before they even get into the majors. Whereas in hockey, there really are no cards that at this point are worthy of investing in until they put on an NHL jersey and really get listed in a game and play in a game. So, and by that point, most people know about them, right? So it's harder maybe to really take a flyer on some unknown guy then versus baseball, where it's quite easy to, because these guys get cards well before they're in the major league. So I think that's a key fundamental difference. But if you're going to invest in a hockey player, if you're going to so-called prospect in hockey, I like the idea of picking a player that you like the way they look on the ice, you like the market they play in, or maybe not. Maybe you want to take a real gamble and say, well, this is a player I like. Jack Eichel in Buffalo might be a good example, because here's a great player, but he plays in Buffalo, which is a small market, and not they have the team has collectors, but really, how much potential does he have versus if he played in New York or LA or Detroit or Chicago or one of those, Toronto or Montreal? Not as much, but maybe players like that will get traded. So you could go really out on a limb and kind of still prospect that player, hoping that player does end up in a bigger market eventually, which could really help their cards. We've seen it happen before. I'm all like you with Mantha. I'm also sort of right now prospecting on a player who plays in a small market team, and I'm not sure I want to let the cat out of the bag on that, so I probably won't. But he's a player who hasn't played in the. I'll give a few hints. Hasn't played in the NHL yet, I don't think. Maybe would have come in at the end of this year. Hey,
did you say play a full season or play any games?
At all?
I think he's played a few games.
You know who he is. I told you last night. But anyway, he's a young guy, and I'm going to take a risk on that player, but it's very small. I'm going to maybe invest a few $100s and have a few cards in the event that this guy does pop in the league. And it just so happened, I have a cousin. I actually have a first cousin of mine is a pro scout for the team he plays for. So I called him up several months ago and I said, hey, is there any player on your team that you think is going to be really, really good? And he said, actually, yeah, here's the guy. So I said, okay, that's all I need to know. I'm going to go pick up some of his cards. And I've done exactly that. So, investing it's a hot topic right now. Everyone seems to be talking about all these content creators on YouTube and Instagram. And I mean, even Facebook. There's a YouTube show called Sports Card Investor, and he's got a Facebook group, and that's all he talks about is investing, almost to the point of not talking about collecting at all.
Yep.
A lot of people in that group are just about investing, and I think, like, hey, all the power to you. I've got no issues with you guys being in the hobby and doing that whatsoever. I welcome it, but it's certainly not my angle. I'm collector first, investor as a consequence of being a collector. So, but I like your 3 points, right? The market you play in, the country of origin, and the position they play. In hockey, if you want to invest in hockey, you need to go with guys that score goals. That's where the action is. It's just like the scorers in basketball and the home run hitters in baseball, right? And the quarterbacks in football. That's where people want to, those are the athletes that people like the most. And that's where the best opportunities are, in my opinion, which I think is somewhat accurate when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to a few more comments, and then we'll go to the other topic that we're going to talk about. So let's see here. There's been a lot of comments. I've missed a bunch, so I apologize to everybody, as I always do. Let's see Barry's comment. I was discussing Eichel versus Rantanen the other day as an investment, and I said Rance because he's a top player on a team primed to win a cup on. Cups drive cards as well.
Yep.
That's a great point.
Really great point.
Right? I mean, and for your list, Stefan, I mean, it's almost worthy to add that as your 4th criteria. Yeah. Championships or potential for championships. Would you consider adding that to your 3 key points?
Oh, 100%. If I'm looking for, the quicker flips or quicker prospecting, I invested in Rantanen myself, and it panned out sooner than I thought it would, because he just popped, and I knew Avalanche, from Colorado. I'm not an Avalanche, I'm a Blues fan, but I'm an Avalanche fan as well, being here in Colorado. So I knew they had a really good team coming up, and I got to see Rantanen his first few games played, and as a 10th overall draft pick. And I was like, man, this kid he's huge. He's a goal scorer. He's a great skater. He's a finisher. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to, he's cheap right now. There's a lot of upside. He's going to be playing with, arguably the 2nd best player in the league with McKinnon, and a great, power forward Landeskog, and it panned out. So any team that, is going to be a cup contender, you absolutely, for the quick flips, invest in those guys, because you always see a pop after the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Especially.
Exactly. And someone put up earlier here, which I didn't, they said Binnington. Binnington is the goalie on St. Louis who won the Stanley Cup as a rookie. I think maybe the first time since Ed Belfour did it for Chicago. And before that was probably Ken Dryden for the Montreal Canadiens. I'm just going off my memory. I might be wrong on that. So feel free to correct me, anybody. But yeah, totally get what you're saying. Winning cups, championships in any sport is going to solidify you as someone who's going to be remembered, especially if you're key to the team, right? So Paul he says to Richard, imagine if Stamkos or Kucherov played in an original 6 team. I mean, there's so many players that are so good that are kind of buried in these lower level markets that just don't get the love in the hobby, and I can think of several. One guy that comes to mind, Shane Doan, played for the Arizona Coyotes for his whole career, and the Winnipeg Jets. People haven't even heard of Shane Doan, and he's like one of the best team players of all time. Yep. Brian says hockey cards are driven by the World Junior Championship Canadian players. I've noticed. I think there's something to that. If you've played in Olympics or the World Juniors, you're going to have a bit more of a following. Right? What does Mitchell say? I've loved Eric Staal since his rookie year, played in a bad market and not a big name, but I enjoy collecting him. And that's the beauty of the hobby. We can collect whoever the heck we want. And there's all sorts of players that have followings that you wouldn't expect. And you see it all the time online. People are hunting for for cards of obscure players who are not really well known, but people still collect them. And that's really great, because especially for breakers and people who buy into group breaks and people who bust product, you're getting a lot of cards of players that you want to be able to move to somebody, especially if they're not for you. You can probably speak to that, Stefan, as a group breaker yourself.
Yeah. So I actually, away from the group breaking, I want to expand on that comment. So, I think we were going to dive into this after about long-term investing in the hockey. But if you're okay with that, I'll to it now.
For sure.
I think being in the hockey market, you have cons and you have pros. The pros being is there's not as many people in this hobby as baseball, football, basketball, and you're going to get the players that you love. A perfect example, Eric Stahl. He was a great player, still is a great player, and he sells for pennies on the dollar. If he or that type of caliber of player was in basketball, baseball, or football, that would be a high valued card. And, so that's a pro to a con. You want your collection to be worth, a lot of money, but at the same time, you get to collect the player you love for, cheap, relatively speaking. And so to go on to long-term investing in hockey, I am a firm believer that all the collectors now in the hockey hobby have a huge upper hand long-term. With that being said, to expand on that, we're the lowest tier of hobby considering baseball, basketball, and football. I know there's other sports, golf, soccer, and soccer's has huge amount of steam coming. But compared to the other three big sports, I think we as hockey collectors have a huge opportunity for a potential pop in the future. Hockey is one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing sport, not even nationally here in the US and Canada, but worldwide. NHL is going over to China. They're going over to Sweden. They're exposing the game worldwide. And that any exposure, it's going to bring people to our game. And the more people we have in this game, it's going to resonate to more hobbyists, more people in this hobby, and ultimately more money. And I think it's great. I welcome that and I envy that. So with that being said, I think we as hockey collectors have a huge opportunity to buy those blue chip players, all-time great Hall of Famers for relatively cheap right now. I mean, if you compare Crosby to LeBron James, it's not even, comparable in the prices that they sell for. You can get a Crosby Future Watch auto for around $2,000. A LeBron James Topps refractor sells for $12,000. I know I'm probably off a little bit, but that's just
not autoed,
relatively speaking. Yeah, and it's not even autoed. His auto rookie, I don't know what they sell for, but I'm sure it's in the 20,000s. From I know that his exquisites are in the 50s, 60s, 70,000.
LeBron's?
Yeah.
Try 200, 190 to 250.
Okay, that solidifies my point. You can buy the greatest player of our generation. Arguably, you have Ovi now that you can put into that conversation, and buy one of his best rookie cards. And I'm a huge Future Watch auto fan. And I think they're great investment pieces long term. You can buy those relatively cheap compared to other sports. Now, with that being said, do I think hockey will get as big as basketball, football, and baseball? I hope. I don't think so. Anytime in the near future, all I'm hoping for and all I'm a believer in is that hockey's going to pick up steam. I really do.
So
just because of the points I said.
So you talked about going to China. Isn't there some prospect coming out of China right now?
Yeah, so I wanted to mention that as well. I'm not positive his name, but if you YouTube him, Chinese young superstar, there'll be a million, videos of this kid, and he's from China, and he's deemed to be a high prospect. And I think he's only 15 right now. So if he came over to North America last year and played his first year, and I think he did pretty good, adapting and whatnot. But if he pans out and makes the NHL and even becomes a decent player in the NHL, that's going to open up so many Asian collectors to, our side of the hobby and fans from Asia, let alone the NHL, going there and exposing our game.
Yeah.
I think the game, it's a fact that our game is growing at a rapid pace. And, I think it's only about time before this hobby starts resonating as well.
I hope you're right. I hope that this young Chinese, phenom is the real deal and really helps to showcase the sport in China and other countries too, other, Asian countries or wherever. And helps it grow and brings more people in, because basketball is huge. It's got to be the biggest global sport. I mean, besides soccer, but in terms of cards. Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with the Asian market and just how much money collectors over there pour into the shoes that they wear, the Jordans and the LeBrons and the Kobes and all these, all the brands that are named after these players that these guys wear. They love the stuff. And you see a lot of them at the National in the States, right? Every year, there's a ton of people that come over from China and not only China, it's Korea, it's several Asian countries are just packed with collectors, mostly basketball. So hopefully we can see a dent in terms of hockey over there as well, and grow the profile of the sport and the hobby for hockey cards internationally as well, more so than it is. Absolutely. An anonymous Facebook user, if this is you, please go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and click the big blue button so I can get you more involved. But he says during the playoffs, there's always a player that lights it up and the cards go up. And then Richard says, see Fernando Pisani, who most people probably haven't heard of, but he lit it up one year for the Oilers in the playoffs, probably when they went to the Cup Finals against Eric Stahl and the Carolina Hurricanes in 2004, I believe it was. No. Yeah, 2005.
2005?
It was 6. It was 6 because it must have been the year after the lockout.
Was that Cam Ward's rookie year? I think that was his rookie year.
Probably his rookie year, yeah. So it would have been 06, exactly. Yeah. Steve wants to know who my specific player is. I'm not telling. Andy joining late. Hello, welcome to the show, Andy. Good to see you as always. Richard has a comment. I would say a fourth criterion, which is harder to predict, would be for which to. Sorry, I'm looking behind my camera. Would be timing in terms of when to sell. Few situations in hockey will bump value. Stanley Cup, trophy, scoring title, records, Hall of Fame induction, maybe retirement, unfortunately passing away. So good point in terms of timing when you're investing in cards. I think it's more on the sale of the card versus the purchase of it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's, you can take that all the way to the stock market investing. Everything in investing is always timing.
It's timing for sure.
Buy, knowing when to sell, you can never really predict when something, you could try. And that's, you take that to the stock market, and that's, what traders are every day are doing. And that's everywhere.
Timing is everything in life too, not just in investing in cards. Timing is so important, it's just crazy how you can, from everything from car accidents. It's just timing is everything in life. So Andy wants to know if we can recap the 3 criteria. I'll do it quickly. So 1 is country of origin, 2 was are they a scorer or not, and 3 was the market that they play in. Are they on a popular team? Patrick Waugh won this. Of course, Patrick Waugh won the Stanley Cup as a rookie in 1986. Cam Ward won in his rookie season. Sam says basketball is so far ahead on the worldwide collecting. I agree. Hockey is on its way. We are probably 5, but good upside. I'm not sure what we're saying there, but the spirit of the comment is that, yeah, we have a ways to go to catch up to basketball.
Probably 5th in sports and collecting.
Yeah. Darcy wants to know what your top 3 Gordie Howe cards. Well, we showed his top 5 a little while ago, Darcy. You must have missed it. So you can always rewind and see that again later. 5 years behind is what Sam was saying. We're always 5 years behind.
Okay.
Definitely. And Terry, thanks for clearing that up for Darcy. Okay, that's the end of the comments for now. Thank you. I always feel good getting caught up on those, and I'm sure people are going to send in some more, which I do love as well.
Yeah.
All right. So let's now talk about as a younger guy, you've got some tips that you want to share with younger collectors. And I think it applies to new collectors too, not just younger collectors. So why don't you address all of that?
Yeah. So these are just my personal, thoughts and opinions and how I navigated through the hobby. And so far it's paid off for me. So yeah, it's just tips, it's not just for young guys, older guys. It could be for two. It's just, anyone new in the hobby that's trying to learn and navigate through this hobby. You see a lot of older guys. I wouldn't say older guys, a lot of guys in their 30s and 40s that collected as a kid and now are just coming back into a hobby. That's a huge trend right now. So a lot of the hobby could be overwhelming for them. So my tips would be, one is honestly, it's pay your dues. Pay your dues, build a reputation. Everyone, most people had to do it back, I want to say in the olden days of forums before Facebook popped. You had to send first and build up your feedback, and you had to build a reputation. And I think that's still very valid nowadays. You got to pay your dues and, build a reputation, and a positive reputation, obviously, if you want to be considered, legit in this hobby and respected. The second tip I have, and it's something that I did, and I'm so glad I did, and it's research everything. Research, until your brain can't handle it anymore. And the more you learn and find out about this hobby, the more it's going to pay off in the future. Whether you're, trading, whether you're buying on eBay, making deals, whether you're buying in collections and flipping it. I mean, it's so valuable to know the market. It's valuable to know, the eras of markets. It's good to know vintage cards. It's good to know 2000s cards and now modern cards.
Can you do me a favor and expand on the research piece? Explain to people how to actually conduct this research.
Yeah. So what I did, and, I was probably pretty lucky, being able to go into the local card shops and, learn, hands-on. And for the kids that don't have that experience, I would just, eBay is a great tool to use for past sales, trying to learn, what cards sell for, you spike in prices. And right now, StockX, for those of you who are familiar with StockX, it's a big sneaker selling website, but they've expanded into cards. And if you type in a card, it will actually give you, it's like the stock market, and it will give you the graph of the last, 90 days to 3 years of what cards have sold for. So I think eBay, and then even, just learning sets, PSA, it has all the sets registry pretty much of all time on their website. So just learning the different sets, the history of the hobby, it'll come, it will, it'll be worth it, one point in time.
And so my takeaways there are, first of all, using the grading companies for their population reports, so you can actually know how many, if you're investing or you're collecting graded cards, you can go to PSA's website, Beckett's website, possibly SGC's website, KSA, MNT. You can go to their websites, I believe, and see how many cards of each grade are available or have been actually submitted to them. And they're not always accurate because people crack cards out of slabs. So there is a margin of error there. But for the most part, they're going to give you a general indication of how many cards are available there. Another really important thing, I think, is just ask questions, and ask questions of people that you are, socializing with online or wherever. Like send me a question, send Stephon a question, like people, whoever you're comfortable, your LCS owner, whoever owns the shop that you're going to, asking questions is pretty important too.
Yeah,
I had another one, but I had another sort of takeaway from what you were saying, but it kind of slipped my mind. It'll come back to me, I'm sure. Okay. Terry wants to know, do you have any Gordie Howe rookies, graded or not?
I have a PSA 4. And I'm looking to upgrade. It's expensive now, and but ideally I want to get a 6 or 7 one day. That's my. And
that's an instance where your collecting and your investing has kind of taken the same, been manifested through the same holding, because that card is both something you PC because you collect Gordie Howe, but it's also certainly an investment because you've got significant funds tied up in that card. Am I right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And to me, those are my favorite cards. I shouldn't say that all the time, but I do love the cards in my collection that are both personal collection. Like I love them for the collecting, for just the fact that I own them and collecting them, but I also love the investment part of it. Andy wants to know a bit more about StockX, and all I know is that it was, as you mentioned, Stephon, it's really a stock market for shoes originally. Now they've gotten into other clothes and figures and cards. Anything else on that?
Yeah. So it was originally for shoes, and I think clothes. You buy a lot of designer brand clothes on there. But I think the last year, it could have been longer, they've gotten it like heavy into the card market. And so it's kind of being used as an alternative of eBay and ComC, where it's the nice thing about it is all cards that are on there are all graded. There are no ungraded cards that are listed on that site. So, sellers will list their card for a price, and it's kind of like eBay where you can, make an offer. It'll show you right there what the last card sold for of that specific card that you're trying to buy, and then it will show you the graph of the last, it could be, you could set it to 30 days if it's a high volume card, or you can set it to the last 3 years, and it builds, I think, all through their site and eBay.
Yeah.
Where it records that data. So it's really, really easy to see what cards have been selling for and just the current market on cards. And it's a really cool site, Yeah,
I've checked it out. And also I know that I believe YouTube channel Cardboard Chronicles interviewed the founder of StockX, which is now $1 billion company as far as I understand. And it's a new company. It's like 5 years old or something. But if anyone wants to learn more about StockX, just do a YouTube search for StockX, and I think the Cardboard Chronicles episode will come up. And Josh, who hosts that show, interviews the founder, and you can really learn everything you want to learn about that there. So definitely recommend that. I remembered what I forgot before. The other sort of point in terms of doing your research, because you were really saying research, if you're new in the hobby, was just how useful eBay's sold listings are. If you do a search in eBay and you scroll down a little bit on the left-hand side, there'll be a little checkbox that you can click in, and it'll convert what you're looking at, the page, from cards that are currently for sale to the cards that have sold. Most people know this by now, I would think, but for those that don't, it's an amazing resource. It's free, of course, and it's really can let you know what cards have recently sold for. And like Stephon said, especially if it's a high volume card, you can get some of that historical data on eBay as well. And Brett concurs, ask questions, be an active and respectful listener. There's, there's lots of people have trouble listening, but they love, except to their own voice a lot of the time, myself included, especially on the show. But, always ask questions. You may get some information that isn't good, but you are going to get the odd piece that is, and hopefully more than the odd piece that is a really good little tidbit, a good nugget of information. So ask questions of people that you respect and whose collections that you admire. I think that's a good tip as well.
Yeah, I wanted to spring off that real quick. Even me today, I asked so many questions still. I mean, your guest, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, Karn Rai, I ask that guy questions all the time. The amount of knowledge that guy has in investing in the hobby, it's unbelievable. And I'm constantly asking that guy questions, and, questions to everybody. I'm still, I still ask questions every single day to, other people in the hobby, just to, keep learning. You can never know too much.
And to find out something you might not be thinking of, right? I mean, the other thing is that there's so many of us in the hobby, and we all approach it differently. So we have experts in different sets, different sports, different types of cards throughout. So, even like you asking questions, even today, I sent a text message to a buddy of mine in the hobby saying, "Hey, do you have time for a quick call?" Because I was negotiating for a card on eBay, and the guy, he was asking $550 for the card. I made an offer of $200, and he came back at $250. I thought, whoa, we're in working. We can maybe work on something here, because he came from $550 down to $250 pretty easily. So I thought to myself, okay, $250, that's a fair price. I just got to make sure. So I sent a message to my buddy. He said, "Yeah, give me a call." I called him. I said, "Listen, you're an expert. Like, we both love these types of cards." I said, "You're an expert in this. What do you think of this price for this card?" And, after a 5-minute discussion, I decided to accept the seller's offer and buy the card. And, even myself, who's been in the hobby for 40 years and is, active in it, you should see, the daily reports that you get on your phone that tell you how many hours of screen time you've had. Mine are ridiculous. It's like I'm not even going to say, but it's ridiculous how much I'm looking at hobby stuff, and it's almost all hobby related. Some work too, but I mean, between eBay, Instagram, Facebook, ComC, you know, message boards, all that, like I'm on there a lot. So, you know, you can ask, you got to find the people that know about the card or the set that you're interested in, or the sport or the athlete, and just bounce the idea off them, because they may say something that could change your mind on whether to buy the card or not buy the card. Right. So
absolutely.
I think we definitely agree on that. Alf says, pay your dues. Totally agree. Cultivate your relationships with other collectors. It's a great source for finding cards from top end to base. And, you know, Al's a guy I know personally, and Al is a great example of somebody who is very active in communicating with other player collectors. And if he sees a card of a player that you collect, he'll let you know. He kind of epitomizes that the whole community part of the hobby, in terms of looking out for your fellow collectors and cultivating those relationships. Because, you know, it's all like, I get messages all the time, people sending me links to eBay auctions for Dale Howardchuk, a player that I've collected quite aggressively over the years. And like yourself with Gordie Howe, I'm sure you get those same texts on a regular basis. And if you're not out in the hobby making it known who you are and what you're collecting, you're not going to get those messages. So to anybody out there, new or veterans, like, you got to put yourself out there if you want to find the cards that you're looking for, because people will all of a sudden just offer them to you or point you in their direction. And that's really valuable. So, okay. An anonymous user, Stephon rocking the flow. Share some of that with Jeremy. Yes, if you could, I'd be all over that.
Topic of the night. Screw it.
Exactly.
Just talk about hair products.
Hair product. Yeah, exactly. So, okay, we covered it. There's one more topic that I wanted us to touch on, aside from the investing piece, the tips for new collectors. I want to talk about grading a little bit, because it's a hot topic lately. You know, there was a trimming scandal last year in 2019 that kind of rocked the hobby for a while, had an impact on on some grading companies, some consignment sellers. What are your thoughts on grading in general? And you know, a lot of people take a position that, you know, modern Beckett, vintage PSA, not a position I take personally, but many do. Yeah. What are your thoughts on grading from those perspectives?
Yeah, so I'll keep this kind of short. For those of you who want to get, you know, really involved to it, I'd go and watch Brian Gray's episode. He kind of dives into it and what he thinks, and my views are very similar to him as far as, you know, what people should use for grading and, you know, what reciprocates sells. So there's two different types of, you know, people who are grading their cards. And I do both. I grade cards that I'm putting in my personal collection, no matter what the grade is, because I think it's the best protection. It's, you know, you have that card sealed, you know, it's not going to get damaged unless if you try to damage it. And it's great for your PC. I have a lot of Gordie cards that are graded and that aren't good grades. I got 7.5s, 8s that, you know, I just have in my collection for the protection of it. And I don't care. The other part of it is trying to increase the value of the cards and try to sell them. So the general rule of thumb, and this switches from all different sports from what I've seen. Modern day hockey, Beckett seems to be, you know, the leader, I would say, in the hockey hobby. PSA 10s outsell PSA 9.5s, but it's not a huge margin compared to the other sports. In basketball, the margin between Beckett 9.5 and 10s are a lot larger than they are in hockey.
Sorry. The difference between Beckett 9.5s and PSA 10s are a lot larger in basketball than hockey?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Just clarifying.
Yep. And in hockey, you don't, there's not a huge gap there. PSA 10s do sell more for BGS 9.5s in modern day hockey, but it's not a huge difference. For vintage, I would go PSA all day long. They're known for their vintage grading, and I think the vintage cards look best in their PSA holders. That's just a personal preference, but I think a lot of people would agree. But ultimately, it really becomes what you like. If you like the Beckett holders, grade Beckett. No matter if it gets a good grade it's going to sell well. And
so I'm just pointing that out for Mike Roberts, who is the anonymous commenter before. Mike, you just got to go to streamyard.com/Facebook, click the big blue button, and that will let us see your name in the comments. I apologize for that, but please go do that. Love to have you join more non-anonymously.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stephon.
Oh yeah, it's good. And there's been a recent, there's probably going to be some comments about this, about SGC. And although I don't have anything against SGC, they are picking up steam and their sales are getting closer to PSAs and Beckett's. But do I think it's sustainable long-term? No, I don't. Just like, Brian Gray said, there's a reason why their turnaround time is a lot quicker than PSA and Beckett. And that's just because PSA and Beckett are higher in demand. Could you see a switch or, SGC catching up to Beckett and PSA? Maybe. It's just not something I firmly believe in. And I always think PSA and Beckett are going to be the kings of grading in this hobby for the foreseeable future, for sure.
Sure. And, I somewhat agree, but I will add that as far as SGC goes, they have been around as long, if not longer than PSA. They're one of the originals. And there seems to be a movement going on right now amongst a lot of the basketball guys to really start considering SGC as an alternative to PSA and Beckett. And if that catches on, I think they're going to have a chance for it to go from being like the big two to the big three. And there was a time before Beckett even got into grading that it was SGC and PSA, and they kind of shared the market. I think what set PSA apart, honestly, was their set registry. It got a lot of people realizing that that's kind of what I want to do. I want to compete for these set registries, and so that kind of put SGC to the side, I guess, as far as that goes. But I think they do have a shot at it, and I'd like to see there be more competition, because competition is always good. But who knows where it goes? And I think it's going to take a concerted effort for some influential collectors to start using them and showing them off as PC cards and really doing it. But I think the opportunity is there. As far as whether or not, Beckett for modern and PSA for vintage, I think a lot of that depends on the collector too. I think the general rule, though, is that vintage, most people go with PSA. Modern, most people go with Beckett. I think that's just the way it is. For me, and we all have our own approaches. I like more of a uniformity in my personal collection. So I do stick to PSA for all my cards. But I shouldn't say all of them, because I do have Beckett graded cards as well. And I even have a couple SGCs, but no other one. Those are the only ones I do have. And I love all of them, to be honest. So yeah. Okay, we got some more comments rolling through here. And Mitchell, I tried to explain. I hope that Mike Roberts is click the big blue button. That'd be great to have you join us more. Let's see what Barry says. He's got another good comment here. I think with modern cards, because the cards are so precisely cut and handled, you need the BGS subgrades to separate pricing. Example, Trout BGS 10s are 7K versus PSA 10 3+K. It's a good point. I didn't think of that, because they are cut so much more precisely than the cards were back in the Topps and O-Pee-Chee days by the wire cutters. Now they are cut more precisely. I wonder sometimes, though, kind of contrary to Barry's comment, though, is that like how closely and how much time are the graders spending on each of these subgrades, especially considering their backlog and the fact that they're so behind and their turnaround times are not being met. And that's not even has nothing to do with COVID. That just has to do with the way, even for the last couple of years, really. I wonder, the subgrades are certainly important on the secondary market, but are they actually they're not perfect, but are they a decent reflection of the actual condition of the card? So
it's a loaded question that you're asking yourself.
We
can have an episode all about that specific.
Yeah. So do your research, people, look into the grading companies, go search sold listings on Beckett and PSA graded cards and SGC graded cards for that matter, and see how those cards sell. There are probably some really good deals out there on cards that are graded by companies other than PSA or Beckett, i.e. SGC or the Canadian companies, KSA and MNT, that might cross over well. You buy them cheaper because they're not in that more expensive slab, and you cross them over. There may be some good gains to be made there if that's your thing in the hobby. Or even to just get into a card you want for cheaper that has a good grade attached to it. So, and there he is, Mike Roberts in the house. Great to have you back. Barry says, but definitely PSA for the vintage. I completely agree with that for myself. And he was referenced the Topps Update Trout, which I was thinking you were. So we're on the same page there. Okay, man, listen, we're winding down. We got about 5 minutes left. You wanted to do a giveaway.
I did, yeah. Yep.
So to be eligible for Stefan's giveaway tonight, guys, it's going to be a trivia question. Again, if you're watching on Facebook, you're at a disadvantage because you're 10 seconds behind the people watching on YouTube. So if you want to run over to YouTube, now's the time. The channel is called Sports Cards Live. Go there, subscribe, hit the subscribe button. And if you do that, you are eligible. So I'm going to go to my subscribers list in YouTube now in another window and see who all is going to be in there. And Stephon, while I'm doing that, why don't you go ahead and talk about what you're giving away and what the question is going to be to find out who our winner will be.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm a Gordie Howe collector, so I thought it was fitting. I'm going to be giving away this, I think it's a 6x10 Gordie Howe signed picture and the COA right here. So this will obviously be shipped in a top loader. It's in good condition. So Gordie Howe signed picture with the COA. And yeah, it's going to be a trivia question. You want me to ask it right now?
Go ahead. Shoot.
Right.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hobby related. Some of you might know this, some of you not. But it is, what is the last set of cards that Gordie signed where it was hard signed autos before he passed away? What is the last set that he signed for?
So the last product release that he had autographed cards in. Yeah. Does it matter if they're stickers or hard signed, or you want
hard signed? Hard
signed. So on card autographs, the last on card autograph product that Gordie Howe showed up in. That is the question.
He's still he's going to be in the SPA release. Upper Deck acquired some sticker autographs from the estate, so he's going to be on I think he's on an Immortal Ink set and like an 8-way sign of the time. So that'll be pretty cool to see.
Okay. So we do have a winner. As long as you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, you can win this prize. And let's see. So the first guess was Dominion, false. The second guess was 07 Ultimate, not right. The third guess was Dominion 1314, not right. The fourth guess was National Treasures from your good buddy, Grant Patterson. Grant Patterson subscribed to Sports Cards Live 59 seconds ago. It pays to go on to watch this show on YouTube when we have giveaways because you are 10 seconds ahead.
That's too good.
Now, if for some reason you want to award it to somebody other than Grant, hey, I mean, you guys are buddies, so he might already have that same thing, but I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, no, I actually don't think I've had this conversation with Grant before, so that's totally fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
All good. All good. So there you go. Grant, congratulations on winning the prize. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Much appreciated. Anyone else out there who's watching, if you haven't subscribed to the Sports Cards Live channel on YouTube, I ask that you do so. Trying to grow the channel and just get more viewers and more activity. So please do go do that. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. What other guesses did we have here? Some more Dominions and lots of NT. Lord Stanley's mug was one guess by In the Game. Let's go to this question. Before we sign off, we'll do another minute or so. Amish Dave Archer wants to know, what's your most wanted Howe that you've either never seen or only maybe once along the way?
Yeah, this is a card I've been chasing for a long time, and I didn't show any of my multi-auto cards, but Gretzky or Howe, because I have quite a few of those, but one's eluded me for a long time, and that's I believe it's the 06-07 SPA sign of the times, and it's Lemieux, Howe, Gretzky, and Orr. And that card's been eluding me for a long time. If it's Gordie Howe just alone, it's the Hardware Heroes from 06-07, the Cup. I've been trying to acquire one of those for a long time, but I think they're out of 5, and they're just so hard to find. But those 2 cards are probably the top of my want list right now. They've just always seemed to eluded me, and the price keeps going up at every year. It seems like Gordie stuff keeps going up, especially for the rare stuff that's harder to find.
Yeah, and especially when he's on a card with an on-card autograph with guys like Gretzky, Orr, and Lemieux. And I'm just thinking, like, that to me sounds like the perfect card. Is there a 5th player that you'd even want on that card? Like,
no. I want another play on that card. Those are the 4 horsemen, in my opinion, of the game. That are, relatively, you can go back farther with Cyclone Taylor and George Vezina, but, a relative day that's possible. Those are the 4 horsemen, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you can, make the argument for Messier or Yzerman, but in my opinion, I mean, those are great players for sure. And I have autos with both of those guys with Gordie, but I think those are the perfect 4.
Yeah. A couple of guys have said, like Jason says, Maurice Richard, Adam says Maurice Richard. And that's the guy that comes to mind for me too. Another guy that might come to mind for me, but it would kind of change the theme of the card, would be like a Patrick Waugh,
Yeah, I've always thought about that too. If there'd be a, he does have autographs with Esposito and Johnny Bauer, and those were from Dominion, and we have a couple of other ones with goalies, and those are cool cards. I think when you get hard signed autos with any Hall of Famer, I think it's cool. And, that's part of my investment strategy is I collect, old time autographs of players that aren't going to be around,
aren't going to be forgotten. Yeah. Quasi Quad says Messier and Jagger. I'd almost prefer Jagger in that situation because Messier kind of played in Gretzky's shadow for a bunch of his career, even though he was a great leader and all that. But I'd almost rather see Jagger there, who is second all-time leading scorer, like all-time points wise, right? Like, I'd rather see Jagger there.
It would probably be Jagger now that comes to mind. Just second,
right? Yeah,
speak for itself.
The Moose says Beliveau, and we talk about the guys like Beliveau and Maurice Richard. Unfortunately, they're just not there to sign anymore. Like, these guys aren't around, so that's not going to work.
Autos with Beliveau. He has dual autos with Beliveau.
Oh, true. I guess, back 10 years ago or so, they were out there. Yeah, Quasi-Quad throws Brodeur out there also. I think Brodeur would be an alternative to Patrick Waugh, as would, in my opinion, Dominic Hasek. Yeah. Adam throws out Mike Bossy. Yeah, I could see it, but he might bring that card down a little bit, in my opinion.
He has a couple of cards with Marcel Dion, and I'm not taking away from those players at all. Unbelievable. No. They're so underappreciated in the hobby. Marcel Dion alone is probably top 5, if not the most underappreciated person in hockey history.
Yeah, I agree. He was the second leading scorer in the NHL, I believe, until Jagger took that over not too long ago, and he never won a cup. He had a storied career, 20-year career, and never won a cup. We have a couple more. Henri Richard. I'd rather have Maurice than Henri. Stephen Sue asks how old you are, and I think someone said you're 21, so there you go. Costa says Solani. I love Solani. He's my favorite player of all time. But I'd almost rather see him on a card that's more of an international flavor card, like Solani, Ovechkin, Jagger, of course. Something like that would be, and I don't want the guys like Curry and Stastny from the 80s. I want guys more from the 90s and the 00s on a card like that. I think that would be awesome. Brett Miles completely agrees with Dion. Yeah, I don't think you can. And what is Paul says, Bossy suffers from that team bias. Imagine if Bossy played in Toronto. And just on that, Sam Bure for sure. I'll throw that up in a second. But of course, like if Bossy won 4 cups with the Islanders, and he still doesn't get the hobby love that a guy like that should. But he played his whole career with the Islanders, who are kind of the poor man's Rangers in a way in terms of how many fans they have around the world, because the Rangers are an original 6 team. So yeah, Sam throws Perreault out. Yeah, Perreault, Solani, Fedorov, Jagger, Ovechkin. I mean, that'd be
an unbelievable. Hey, Billy, if you're listening, there you go. That's your next driving, sign of the times product for next year. Get all those guys on one card.
One hard sign, Billy. Hard sign.
Let's go back to the hard sign of the times. I know it's harder said than done.
It's hard for them to do. Jason throws out Solani and McGillney. I mean, yeah, because those guys raced. Solani has the record for most goals by a rookie with 76. But that year he tied in goals scored with Alexander McGillney. So that would be pretty cool for sure. All right, man. Listen, we're over the 2-hour mark here. Any final thoughts before we sign off? Anybody, any final comments? We'll try and get them in. Otherwise, we're going to shut this thing down in about a minute or so.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime next year, whenever. Hopefully this show keeps going on. I think you're planning to have this go on even past COVID. I hope you are. I enjoy them. Whenever I'm shipping and sorting breaks, I just throw you on in the background, and it's a great side, something to listen to. So
that's great. Yeah, I appreciate that.
And if any more questions, I don't know. I can't see them.
Yeah. So. No, it's a great compliment. I appreciate that. I do plan to keep this going out. Once we can start leaving the house more, I don't know that I'll be able to stick with the twice a week schedule, but I will as long as I can. I am enjoying it and having fun, and we got a lot of viewership, so I know people are enjoying it too, and that's going to keep me going. So, all right, guys. Well, listen, Stephon, thank you for joining me. It's been a really good discussion. Totally enjoyed it with you. I love these Wednesday episodes as much as the Saturday episodes, because the collector perspective is really like we're talking hobby here, and we're representing everyone who's watching in the hobby. So you have questions, comments, that kind of thing, keep on throwing them up there. Loving it. And Mike says, yep, sorting breaks right now too. Well, perfect. Throw this show on in the background, have it on, listen to it, and we'll keep them coming. So again, Stephon, thanks for joining me. It's been a pleasure to have you. Everyone watching, all the comments, guys, thanks as always. Subscribe, the subscribe to YouTube, watch this Saturday. Dr. Brian Price from President's Choice, formerly in the game, will be joining me. The Saturday after that, Billy from Upper Deck will be joining me. That'll be super interesting for sure as well. So come on out, guys. Watch those next couple of shows. We'll see you all then. Thanks for watching. Everybody have a great night and a great rest of your week. Thank you again.